And good evening once again. Day 99 of the Biden administration on this eve of his 100th day in office, which arrives technically at the end of this hour. President Biden delivered his first address to a joint session of Congress. Tonight looked much different than previous presidential addresses in that huge House chamber. Only 200 people were allowed to attend instead of the 1,600 people it was built for because of the pandemic, obviously. And for the first time in history, two women, Vice President Kamala Harris, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, greeted and sat behind the president as he delivered his remarks to a national audience. The 65-minute speech, give or take, hit all the important issues that have dominated these early days of the Biden presidency. The president highlighted progress made on the pandemic and the economy, but also called for action on other issues like infrastructure. He said that means jobs, child care, police reform. Here is just some of what we heard from President Biden tonight.
After just 100 days, I can report to the nation, America is on the move again. Peril into possibility, crisis to opportunity, setbacks into strength. We all know life can knock us down, but in America, we never, ever, ever stay down. Tonight, I can say, because of you, the American people, our progress these past 100 days against one of the worst pandemics in history has been one of the greatest logistical achievements this country's ever seen. The American Jobs Plan is a blue-collar blueprint to build America. That's what it is. And recognizes something I've always said in this chamber and the other. Good guys and women on Wall Street, but Wall Street didn't build this country. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class. We also need to make a once-in-a-generation investment in our families and our children. That's why I've introduced the American Families Plan tonight. American Families Plan will provide access to quality, affordable child care. My fellow Americans, we have to come together to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the people they serve, to root out systemic racism in our criminal justice system, and to enact police reform in George Floyd's name that passed the House already. As I told every world leader I've ever met with over the years, it's never, ever, ever been a good bet to bet against America, and it still isn't. We're the United States of America. There's not a single thing, nothing beyond our capacity. We can do whatever we set our minds to if we do it together.
The president tonight spoke in the way presidents have spoken to the American people, traditionally, over the years, over the generations. Stylistically, one difference, an extraordinary amount of the use of tone, at times speaking to a whisper. That may have owed to the sparse population of that cavernous chamber, and it may have translated very intimately to television viewers. On the content, in your view, did he hit the mark?
Well, on the content, I really think it was a pretty extraordinary speech. It's certainly extraordinary in the sense that it was a speech that we have not heard from a president in the last 40 years. And could not have heard from a president in the last 40 years, since the Reagan era. And I was struck by something actually that Tim Scott said in response. He said there was a feeling that this nation is sliding off its shared foundations, and there was that same feeling in the country at the end of the Jimmy Carter administration. And so in came Ronald Reagan, and he used that moment to shift the center of gravity of our political spectrum substantially to the right. Government was the enemy. The idea was to get government out of your business, and trickle down economics was the only economics that worked. And And that's kind of where we've been until now, or at least until now in Joe Biden's vision. This was a speech in which he spoke expansively of the role that big government can play in making our lives better, in making us safer and healthier and more productive and more secure. He said trickle-down economics have never worked. Even though that's been the reigning orthodoxy for 40 years. We're at a moment because of the tumult of the Trump years and then the catastrophe of COVID, when I think he believes the nation is receptive to this sort of message and needs this sort of message. And so he really went big in the speech.
Phil Rucker, where are we on unity? Something the president touched on in his remarks, often using that frequency modulation when he reduced his voice to a whisper. Still extraordinary in that chamber. It was often to try to get Republicans with him. Just as often, it was to make a point to the audience at home that he is trying to get support for these initiatives.
It's exactly right, Brian. I think the president was looking straight past those members of Congress in the chamber and talking directly to Americans at home. He was talking about bipartisanship. He was talking about trying to listen to what Republicans want to do, trying to find some compromise. He knows many of those Republicans stayed seated throughout the speech. They didn't agree with him on different things. And yet Biden talked about not wanting to be confrontational, for example, on the issue of gun control. And then when you look at the substantive elements of his jobs plan, which is a massive plan on the scale of the kind of growth in this country we saw 100 years ago during FDR. So many of those elements are very popular, polling will tell us, with the American people. And Biden tried to drive that home. He said this is a blueprint, a blue-collar blueprint for America. He talked about jobs, about creating better jobs for people, giving them a better livelihood and a better foundation for their families. He knows that Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, and their members in their caucuses do not agree ideologically with the substance of those policies. And yet he was trying to sell them, I think, tonight to the American people listening at home.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.